Exclusive contracted novel by Feilu Novel Network. Elf. Starting with a list of mythical beast relationships, Xiaozhi. Divine list descends, start counting divine beast relationship households, Xiaozhi. Walking in the martial arts world, the main goal is to save face. The anger that cannot be quelled by riding Ladina. Xiaozhi can save Emperor Yaluka by brushing his face. Alzia's sanctions. The dual gods of time and space have come to escort Xiaozhi. With each video playing, Xiaozhi's relationship with the mythical beast is completely established. The netizen went completely crazy. Any famous mythical beast, is it all related to him? With the continuous exposure of mythical beasts, beauty, and peak battles, people are completely dumbfounded. What other games are you playing? Direct champion. With the broadcast of the video, the demon god will descend, and the world will eventually usher in destruction. Xiaozhi is alone and facing a crisis. Can you see the divine beast that covers the sky and the sun, just to protect him when he comes? Countless trainers are completely numb. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Zhenxin Town, Divine List descends. Seeking freshness. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Guandu Region. Zhenxin Town. Demu, are you really going to give this magical treasure to that child? It's just a waste. How could the boy named Xiaozhi possibly master this magical treasure? Only we can fully tap into its potential at least. This Pikachu has the potential to touch the threshold of quasi-gods. You are a waste. At this moment, a doctor in a white robe looked at Dr. Oki not far away, seems a bit hoarse and exhausted. Doubts. I don't understand. Pikachu, is that all we have to give away? Not to mention how powerful Pikachu will grow in the future. Its research value alone has surpassed the vast majority of Pokémon. After all, he's just a Pichu. Just an ordinary Pokémon. But far beyond the so-called race value limit. For the significance of scientific research, that Pikachu, even more terrifying than a divine beast. Once the secrets inside that Pokémon are completely mastered, it means that equally powerful Pokémon can be replicated in large quantities, a powerful Pokémon legion. The world will tremble for it. It is not an exaggeration to say that Pikachu's value can change the current situation. And now, after so many years of hard work searching for the perfect research material that can even change the entire world pattern, how could Demu just give it away? To the young man who has just embarked on a journey. Do initial Pokémon. Crazy. You must be crazy. Ron couldn't understand the decision made by Dr. Oki, but he was also helpless. After all, that Pikachu was found by Dr. Oki. Demu looked at his friend in confusion, only sighed slightly, shook his head, and did not explain much. He stood quietly gazing into the distance, and a figure came to his mind, a boy wearing a red and white hat, with a sunny face, a slender body, yet incredibly upright. It seems that no difficulty can stop him. On his shoulder was a Pikachu, and they looked affectionate. When the figure appears in my mind and the scene appears, the bottom of my eyes couldn't help but touch, a flash of nostalgia flashed, and the corners of my mouth curved. Little Zhi, for a long time, Dr. Daiki slowly spoke up. There is a sense of determination in the tone. Pikachu's presence by his side can lead to better development. Upon hearing this, the doctor in white couldn't help but sigh. Demu has gone completely crazy. Doctor in white, named Ron, is also a Pokémon researcher. Specializing in Pokémon gene research. He has confidence that if Daiki fully supports, then the two of them must be able to decipher the secret hidden inside Pikachu's body. Just Ron sighed slightly, but unfortunately missed this opportunity. Perhaps, in this lifetime, there would never be such excellent experimental materials. At that time, Dr. Ojik discovered this Pichu in the wild and brought it back to the research institute. By chance, I was shocked to discover that Pikachu has great potential. It has completely broken through the original race value, no longer limited by race values. To this day, Damu actually sent out that Pikachu. Ron looked at Dr. Oki's back and finally just sighed leisurely. At this moment, at the foot of the mountain. Xiaozhi, you must pay attention to protecting yourself. Xiaozhi's mother, Huazi, looked at her son with a worried expression on her face. Xiaozhi ultimately embarked on the path of becoming a trainer. For such a result, Huazi had already anticipated it. But when I truly see my child about to part ways, I still have some uncontrollable worries. Xiaozhi pressed down on the brim of his hat. But he also crouched down, touched Pikachu beside him, and smiled as he spoke. With Pikachu by my side, it will definitely be okay. After all, Pikachu and I are friends, right? At this moment, Pikachu suddenly burst out with lightning, giving no face to Xiaozhi. After a sizzling and smoking meal, Huazi, who was originally somewhat worried, couldn't help but smile when she saw this pair of live treasures. Finally, his gaze fell on Xiaozhi. Nodding slightly, then looking at Pikachu. I believe you can definitely become good partners. At this moment, many relatives and friends around are gathered around. Come and bid farewell to Xiaozhi. Xiaozhi is a child with a naturally outgoing personality. In Zhenxin town, due to his lively personality, he is also very likable. So there are also many people around. Upon seeing this scene, Xiaozhi also felt a little embarrassed for a moment. At this moment, Dr. Daiki walked towards the foot of the mountain, ready to say hello to Xiaozhi. Ron only sighed slightly when he saw this behind the scenes. I didn't say much more. Just then, a golden screen suddenly appeared in the sky. Reflecting on the horizon, a golden light shines brightly. At the same time, subtitles appear on it. The World God list will be broadcast synchronously worldwide. The sudden scene and a strange voice echoed through everyone's hearts. For a moment, everyone in the world looked up at the sky. In people's perspectives, suddenly a golden screen appeared, spanning the entire sky. At the same time, waves of information also emerge in my mind. Chapter 2. Inventory of God-Beast related accounts. Seeking fresh flowers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. World God List. Inventory the various events happening in the elf world. Any person or elf on the list can receive rewards. Appearing in front of everyone in such a sudden and unfounded manner. And that mysterious voice, however, suddenly resounded in everyone's hearts. And there is also an introduction about the World God list. For a moment, people also completely froze. Including Dr. Oki at this moment and Dr. Ron next to them, both looked at each other in confusion. Looking at this sudden golden light, something called the World God list. I couldn't figure it out for a while. What exactly is this? I'm afraid even those divine beasts cannot have such power. A voice that resonates in everyone's heart, and synchronized with global live streaming. With the emergence of this World God list, many people immediately looked up. Changpan City, Changpan Daoguan. Sakaki looked up at the World God chart in the sky. My heart was momentarily shaken. Silence for a moment. As I opened the mechanism, I quickly stepped into a dark room. Sitting upright on the throne, gently tapping on the seat, a hint of darkness appeared on his face. And the shock that cannot be concealed. Perhaps only in this well-protected laboratory can he feel a sense of security. Looking at the Golden God chart appearing on the screen, the inner shock still lingers. What exactly is this? Will the appearance of this World God list have an impact on one's own plans? Think of this. Sakaki's heart became somewhat urgent. It seems that the plan is being accelerated. Meanwhile, the Elf Alliance. The highest council, in its seats, is a powerful trainer. At this moment, the people who were originally discussing the meeting are also looking up at the sky. World God List. What exactly is this? There was a hint of shock in Grandma Juzi's eyes. Similarly, a man with sky blue hair and an extremely handsome appearance. Wearing a ring in his hand, he looked at the world god chart in the sky. His eyebrows were also furrowed, and he remained silent for a long time. The nearby Yulong fairy, as well as Kona, Shiba, Kalyuni and others, are all shocked at this moment. After a long silence, Grandma Kikuko spoke up first. "Dou, what do you think of this matter? Dawu not only has strong strength and a handsome appearance, but also has a smart mind. This is widely recognized. So, many alliance decisions and meetings involve Dawu." Dawu lightly tapped on the table, his eyebrows furrowed. Looking at the world god chart in the air. But he also spoke softly, "Perhaps. This will be our chance. Because according to the introduction of the world god list, as long as you can make it on the list, you can receive various rewards. And the group of people sitting in the Elf Alliance Council are not only powerful, but also exceptionally talented. He can be said to be the pride of the times. They have confidence to achieve a certain ranking on this world god list." Dawu's words have also attracted the agreement of many people. Yulong Du laughed heartily and became somewhat proud. "There must be me, the dragon messenger, up there." After seeing the appearance of Yulong Du, Dao couldn't help but cover his forehead for a moment. "Adu, why don't you change your name to the Flying Heavenly King? After all, looking at your Pokémon, they're basically all flying." After hearing Dawu's words, Yulong Du was covered in black lines. Grandma Kikuko's expression became somewhat worried. But inside, another figure appeared. Dr. Daiki. For a while, I also wanted to contact him. Dr. Daiki is not only a contemporary figure with Grandma Kikuko, but also a contemporary pride. The first champion of the Guandu region. He is also an idol of many Pokémon trainers. At this moment, Zhenxin town. Xiaozhi looked up at the sky and couldn't help but feel a bit stunned as he looked at the sudden world god list. At this moment, the sky bloomed with brilliance. In that golden screen, a line of words also emerged. World God List Inventory. Walking in the martial arts world not only relies on strength, but also on relationships. During the journey of trainers, relationships can solve many troubles. Next, take a look at the strongest divine beast-related accounts. Look at the subtitles that appear above. Xiaozhi couldn't help but be a bit stunned for a moment. Looking at the meaning of this world god list, it seems that there are many divine beasts. Thinking of this, a hint of anticipation couldn't help but appear in Xiaozhi's eyes. He also wants to see many divine beasts. Seeing the charm of those divine beasts, those Pokémon from legends. Thinking of this, I pulled my hat brim. Looking at Pikachu beside him, with a hint of hope in his eyes. I will definitely become the world's Pokémon master. Speaking of the end, he clenched his fists tightly, his eyes incredibly firm. For a moment, Pikachu beside him couldn't help but feel a bit stunned. Looking at the young man in front of me, an inexplicable emotion appeared in my heart. With the emergence of content on the world god list, the crowd around suddenly began to chatter. Oh my god, is there a divine beast-related household? Surprisingly, someone has seen the legendary Pokémon. No, looking at this posture, those legendary magical treasures are actually real. Frog fun, I suddenly envy the person on the plate who can even connect with divine beasts. It's amazing. I'm really curious, who would make it to the world god list of this mythical beast-related household? No, how do I look at this description? It feels like there's more than just one mythical beast that the relationship between gods and beasts knows. Hiss, it's unlikely, isn't it? Knowing a divine beast is already impressive. Use your pig brain to think about it. If you know a mythical beast, can you call it a mythical beast-related household? Chapter 3. Will it be Little Smart? Divine Beast Xuerabi. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Just as people around were discussing, Dr. Daiki watched the content appearing on the World God list. At this moment, I am also lost in contemplation. Can it be Xiaozhi? Then he shook his head slightly. It's also unlikely. After all, this World God list will take screenshots from the past, future, and present for inventory. In this long river of time, how many stunning and gorgeous people are there? Although Xiaozhi is excellent, it may not necessarily be him. Dr. Oki thinks so. At this moment, Ron, who had not spoken for a long time, looked up at the sky, looking at the World God chart in the air. But there was also a hint of regret in the tone. God Beast. If we could intercept fragment genes, the research value would also be very high. After expressing emotions, Ron looked at Dr. Oki in front of him with a burning gaze, and finally called out in a deep voice. Damu. Dr. Daiki was curious and looked up at Ron. At this moment, Ron finally spoke up. If the person you have chosen is on this World God list, it's okay. I won't say anything, but how did he get on? Just an ordinary child, such a Pokémon shouldn't fall into his hands. It's a complete waste of Pikachu's value. Finally, the topic returned to Pikachu. Dr. Daiki frowned slightly, looked at Ron in front of him, and finally spoke softly. That Pokémon itself is his. After finishing this sentence, Dr. Daiki did not continue. Ron also has some doubts. Is he himself? Isn't this what the two of them discovered in the wilderness before? For a moment, I was just a bit confused. But looking at Dr. Oki's resolute gaze, he only sighed slightly. See, if he ever appeared in one of the many inventory items on this divine list, then I won't say much more. Dr. Daiki heard this, but did not respond much. Just quietly watching the God list. Will Xiaozhi appear? In the dark laboratory, Sakaki looked up at the scene in the video. World God list, and then there are still divine beast-related households. For a moment, my heart couldn't help but be startled. Could it be that my plan was exposed? Artificial divine beast. Then he shook his head slightly and quickly calmed his emotions. His thoughts are also the same. In this long river of time, there are many amazing and gorgeous people, even afraid. Even the creator god Arceus may be known by some people. Otherwise, how could there be a legend left behind? So, in that case, I shouldn't be on the list and it won't affect my plans. Just thinking of this, Sakaki began to become somewhat curious again. What kind of person can one truly be called a divine beast-related household? Even the divine beast needs to give him face. For a moment, sitting on the throne, gently tapping the seat. A hint of darkness flashed in my eyes, and even more so, a hint of contemplation. The emergence of this World God chart. Can I plan anything from it? Elf Alliance, Headquarters. After seeing the content above, Yulongdu's eyes widened in disbelief and he said, What? God-beast-related households. Surprisingly, there is such an outrageous inventory. Dao looked at the surprised appearance of Yulong Fairy and couldn't help but feel a black line all over his head. He reluctantly spoke. Adu, what's up? Don't be so surprised. Yulongdu laughed and said, but to put it another way. Who do you think will be the person listed on the World God list this time? For a moment, everyone present, you look at me, I look at you. But there was also no negotiated answer. After all, in this long river of time, there are too many people who have come into contact with divine beasts. As high-level members of the Elf Alliance, they naturally have some knowledge. The more one knows, the more deeply they are moved. You should know that divine beasts usually become local guardians in a certain place. Only then can one possess the priesthood. That kind of Pokémon is truly a divine beast. And looking at the meaning of this World God list inventory, it is obvious that it is this kind of divine beast with a divine position. So everyone present was particularly surprised. After all, communicate with the local guardian deity, there is such a presence in every region, known as humans who communicate with the deity. A friend who can be called a divine beast, but there are very few people like this. Even the cases they have heard of are rare. Just when everyone had doubts in their hearts. At this moment, the world god chart in the air is once again shining with brilliance, starting to play. Divine Beast Relationship Account, Sherabi Chapter. A line of words appeared above. It's very simple, but the information it reveals. But it also left countless people stunned. Xuerabi surprisingly, it's the legendary Pokémon, Sherabi. For a moment, even those high-level members of the Elf Alliance, upon learning the news. It's also full of disbelief. Xuerabi, able to travel through time and space, able to wander around in different places. And there is also such a legend. Wherever Sherabi has appeared, there will be a bright future in that place. And as the guardian deity of the forest, according to legend, they usually shuttle through the forest. It is hailed as one of the most difficult to see divine beasts. It can be said that the divine dragon has no beginning or end. And now, surprisingly, it appears in the inventory video. With the emergence of this news. For a moment, the world was completely fried. Chapter 4. The Legend of Sherabi. Seeking. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Oh my goodness, is it so explosive right now? That's Xuerabi. Good guy, the vast majority of people will never encounter divine beasts in their lifetime, and even for an era, Sherabi will not appear. Now he is the first one to appear. I have started to be curious. Yeah, no one knows what Sherabi really looks like, they just heard it's a green, elf-like creature. The place where Xuerabi appears will have a bright future, who has such great charm. I have already begun to wonder. I don't know which lucky one was able to meet Sherabi's kind of existence. At this moment, not only the high-level members of the Elf Alliance are shocked. After seeing the content that appeared, people began to discuss it. Xuerabi may not be considered extremely powerful among divine beasts. But it is an incredibly mysterious existence. This is also the reason why everyone is curious. In a dark room. Sakaki sits tall on the throne. After hearing this news, my eyes suddenly froze, filled with disbelief. He grabbed the armchair with both hands and stood up incredulously. At this point, there is even more silence. Xuerabi. Surprisingly, it's Xuerabi. You know, Sakaki, he searched for this elf, but he searched for many years. That's right. He has been searching for Sherabi. 'Cause Xuerabi is really too mysterious, no matter how much she inquires about the news, she cannot obtain any clues. Or perhaps even the slightest bit of genes. What if it's creating a super dream? What he needs more is Sherabi. More precisely, it is the ability to shuttle through time and space. He wants to save his deceased son. This is also the pain of Sakaki's life. It is also his future that will become so extreme, the trigger for wanting to conquer the world. Grasping tightly onto the armchair, there was a long silence before slowly sitting down. Yeah. Even if Xuerabi appeared, what would happen? If it appears in the past. That I can't change anything at all. Or it could appear in the next 100 years, that's also impossible. Thinking of this, Sakaki became slightly calm. But at this moment, the attention to this world god list has also increased a lot. As long as there is a glimmer of hope, he will not give up. Zhenxin town, in front of the Daimu Research Institute. After seeing the content above, Dr. Daiki saw the familiar keywords. At this moment, my heart couldn't help but jump. Half a beat was missed. An idea couldn't help but emerge from within. It emerged that when we first met Xiaozhi, isn't that exactly what Sherabi brought herself into this era? Ron is not looking up at the world god chart in the air. Seeing the title above, my heart was also filled with excitement, and in the end, with a hint of sadness. Surprisingly, it's Xuerabi. If I could get his genes, that would be great. However, even in our era, the appearance of Sherabi may only be a brief period of time, right? Perhaps it's still in the deep mountains and forests. Ah, it seems impossible. At the end, Ron looked at Dr. Oki not far away, looking at his appearance with some curiosity. What's wrong? Demu. Dr. Daiki quickly regained consciousness from his memories. Just shook his head slightly, looked at Ron in front of him, and spoke softly. Just remembering a little thing from the past. Ron nodded and glanced at Dr. Oki, without saying much. But in my heart, I can only sigh. Perhaps only those who meet someone like Sherabi are qualified to control Pikachu. I won't bury his talent. Unfortunately, surprisingly handed it over to such a young man. Xiaozhi looked at the content that appeared above. Listening to the bursts of exclamation in my ear. For a moment, clenching my fist, my heart couldn't help but surge. Xuerabi. As a passionate enthusiast of Pokémon, Xiao Zhi has also heard of this obscure divine beast. Mysterious and unpredictable. Even more so, there are very few records about that divine beast. I have always lived in the deep mountains and forests, and have been constantly changing times. Among divine beasts, they are all extremely mysterious beings. Xiao Zhi couldn't help but become agitated in his heart. He looked at Pikachu in front of him and spoke softly. Pikachu, we will definitely meet those divine beasts in the future. Pikachu heard the words spoken by the young man. Although it's unlikely, it may even sound a bit nonsensical. It can be said from Xiao Zhi's mouth. But it carries an inexplicable magic. This young man has an inexplicable charm. That is incredibly firm. For a moment, Pikachu couldn't help but feel a bit stunned. Quickly, the video is finally starting to play at this moment. The world god chart in the air blooms with radiance. Segments of text emerge, complementing each other. In the end, they gathered together to form fragmented images. In a lush forest, the green is like Pokémon of elves, shuttling quickly through it, but it seems that some people are chasing behind. As this scene played, people immediately exploded. The green, elf-like figure, and most importantly, no one has ever seen this strange magical treasure. Plus the description of this world god chart. It can be determined immediately. That's Sherabi. At this moment, the crowd also completely exploded. Xuerabi. Xuerabi actually exists. And it appeared on the world god list. All kinds of descriptions and legendary features also perfectly match. That's Xuerabi. At this moment, people's emotions also exploded completely. Chapter 5. Daiki's Expectations and the Meeting of Fate. You are listening at novelfull.audio. People are becoming very excited at this moment. But at the same time, it also became somewhat confusing. Why? Seems like something is chasing after Snowy Rabbi. Does Xuerabi look a bit panicked? With the appearance of this scene, Sakaki tightly grasped the armrest of the throne, his originally calm face. At this moment, my face is even more unbelievable. And with an extreme longing. He needs the power of Sherabi, he needs the power to change the past. The Snow Rabbi that I struggled to find. Sakaki, who had been praying in a temple in the forest but had not received any response. At this moment. But I also saw the figure I had been dreaming of. Xuerabi. After seeing that, I couldn't control my breathing and was panting heavily. You must get that Snow Rabbi. At least the current research level of the rocket team and the ability to capture divine beasts. But the most important thing is that they couldn't find Sherabi at all. What about capture? Perhaps you can find some clues about Sherabi in this video. Elf Alliance. De Wu looked at the figure above. A green figure resembling an elf. It is so agile, filled with deep vitality. However, it was obvious that there was a hint of panic. Dou frowned and sighed slightly. Xuerabi, it seems like she's being chased by something. As the words fell, the whole room fell silent. Really, the power of Xuerabi is extremely peculiar. If someone with a heart obtains it, they may use this power to do evil and change history. If caught, I'm afraid the entire history will be altered. Therefore, the hearts of those around them became extremely heavy. Dou just shook his head slightly and then spoke up. But I think there's no need to worry too much. I think most of the time, I met the divine beast-related accounts that were inventoried at this time. According to common sense, he should have saved Sherabi and become a friend. As De Wu's words fell, the expressions of the people around also became somewhat surprised. That's right. If that goes on, then everything will be reasonable. Dou said in a deep voice. But this is just my personal guess at the moment. The specific situation will only be known after the broadcast. Dr. Oki saw the towering forest. And the familiar figure. But it also made my heart skip a beat, becoming somewhat unbelievable. Is it really oneself and Xiaozhi? Then he shook his head slightly. Negated my own idea. Xuerabi was born to love the forest, not necessarily the one she met. But the more I think so, the premonition in my heart became even stronger. Xiaozhi looked up at the world god list in the air. Seeing the figure appearing in it, that green elf-like figure. It's so small and cute to look at. For Pokémon fanatics like Xiaozhi, after seeing Xuerabi, I couldn't help but feel a little surprised for a moment. And the deep affection in my eyes. Surprisingly, it's a real divine beast, Xuerabi. At this moment, the video is playing again. Xuerabi quickly fled in the forest, but there were several Pokémon figures surrounding him. Every time the attack was about to fall, Sherabi was both dangerous and dangerous, so he managed to dodge it. Several attacks fell on you, instantly shattering your defense. Xuerabi lay on the ground, her small body trembling uncontrollably. Sound comes, Pokémon Hunter appears, throwing a unique device. At the moment of throwing it away, the small device turned into a large electric net, and Xuerabi's body was extremely sensitive, barely avoiding it. Pokémon Hunter's expression was even colder. With the command, a few Pokémon chased after him. The severely injured Xuerabi swayed in this forest, opening her mouth and making a mournful cry. The entire forest is now filled with Xuerabi's mournful cries. Pokémon in the forest fell into a panic as this scene unfolds. People were completely stunned. The screen that just appeared was very short. But it contains a huge amount of information. Xuerabi actually being chased. No. More precisely, someone wants to capture him. And, does Xuerabi seem to be seriously injured? With the broadcast of this video, people saw the mournful appearance of Xiaozhi above and were instantly extremely angry. What kind of person is this? It's so despicable, to bully Sherabi like this. Yeah, it's just deceiving the little with the more, and even sneaking attacks. It's really despicable. The one just now should be a Pokémon hunter, right? Oh my goodness, I know the device I just captured was a Pokémon hunter's device from decades ago. Isn't that to say that the footage being played is from decades ago? Just as people around were discussing, looking at the scene playing in the sky. Xiaozhi also clenched his fist. He is passionate about Pokémon battles and also has a genuine love for Pokémon from the bottom of his heart. After seeing the scene broadcasted in the video. But it's also a bit angry. It's really shameless. Surprisingly, while Xuerabi was resisting, he launched a surprise attack from behind. Not far away, Dr. Daiki saw the content played in the video, but inside, there was also a slight sigh. At the same time, with some expectations. Until now. He has basically confirmed it. Did you meet Xiaozhi? P.S. The new book sets sail, and the results on the first day are really important. Readers can share some flowers and tickets so that the author knows someone is reading it. Chapter 6. Rewarded Q&A Session. Seeking Flowers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At this moment, Ron stood next to Dr. Oki, looking up at the World God chart, and the footage played in it also shocked him greatly. Is Sherabi being chased? I know, Xuerabi is a divine beast. And seeing Dr. Oki's complex expression, Ron vaguely sensed that Dr. Oki might know something. Immediately, he began to speak with some confusion. Xuerabi seems a bit weak. Dr. Daiki nodded lightly and then spoke up to explain. Sherabi himself is extremely averse to fighting and not good at it. Ron nodded slightly, his eyes still puzzled. Dr. Daiki remained silent for a moment before continuing to explain. As for the divine beast. Actually, many people don't know that divine beasts actually have their own ethnic group. For example, Xuerabi, perhaps he has a tribe with many Xuerabi inside. As for the first and second level gods we describe, they are all divine beasts with some divine powers. For example, in the capital of water, Latios Latias also has its own ethnic group, but only the two of them hold the priesthood. A divine beast with a divine position will have more abilities than other divine beasts. Hear this. Ron couldn't help but widen his eyes. Although as a PhD researcher in Pokémon genetic engineering, I only focus on studying the genes of species. As for these secrets, I only found out now. For a moment, his face couldn't help but be shaken, and he murmured. So this Snow Rabbi is just one member of its tribe. Dr. Daiki's face was complex and he did not answer. Just looking up at the sky. Meanwhile, on the other side. Elf Alliance. Grandma Juzi also explained to the people around her. After hearing this, Du also appeared somewhat surprised for a moment. Surprisingly, there is such a statement. Why do divine beasts still have races? Grandma Juzi nodded. Then continued to explain. But as Pokémon trainers, most of them are obsessed with improving Pokémon strength, so it's normal for you not to understand this. Moreover, this is just an unpublished theory. After all, meeting a divine beast is amazing. How can there be so many examples to prove it? Not far away, after hearing it, Dawu's face also showed waves of surprise. Seems to have noticed something. Finally, with some curiosity, he asked. Grandma Juzi, how did you know? As Daigo raised this question. Grandma Juzi's eyes also flashed with a trace of nostalgia. That man. A faint smile unconsciously appeared at the corner of the mouth. With a hint of tenderness in his eyes. That spirited young man, the first champion of the Guandu region. Even if you don't become a trainer. That is also the most top-notch existence. But at this moment, the screen starts playing again. Not far away, the boy noticed the fleeing Sherabi and two Pokémon chasing after him. Xuerabi was suppressed by the flying mantis and let out a painful and mournful cry. The boy came to help and successfully rescued Xuerabi. The Pokémon hunter rode a motorcycle and rushed over. The boy had to hold Xuerabi and flee through the forest in order to save him. Xuerabi's ability to activate, shuttle through time and space, and disappear into this world. The video played this time is very short. But it has left many people with a strong shock in their eyes. Dr. Daiki watched the scene that appeared in the video. It can already be confirmed. This is the time I saw Xiaozhi. His expression changed again and again. Although I have only vaguely guessed in the past few days, seeing behind the scenes is still a bit shocking. Ron looked at Dr. Oki, who had been strange since before. Shaking his head, somewhat puzzled. What's wrong, Daimu? A snow rabbi, why are you so excited? Dr. Ron only met Dr. Oki later. Therefore, I have never seen Dr. Oki from my childhood. Dr. Daiki looked at the video in the sky, but only spoke leisurely. That's me. As the words fell, Dr. Ron was completely dumbfounded. Everything is unbelievable. The boy appearing in the video is actually Dr. Oki. At this moment, Elf Alliance headquarters. Grandma Juzi also looked incredulous and stood up directly. In a quiet meeting room, the creaking sound of the stool was particularly piercing. The eyes of the people around were attracted, looking at Grandma Kikuko with such a big reaction. For a moment, I was a bit curious, still carrying a strong sense of confusion. Dou dragged his chin and looked at Grandma Juzi not far away, with a hint of contemplation in his eyes. Grandma Kikuko's eyes were filled with excitement. Watch the people appearing in the video. With tears in his eyes, he kept murmuring to himself. It's him. It's really him. The scene of that man once overwhelming the entire audience with his own strength and winning the championship with great vigor is vividly remembered. Although it eventually turned to studying elves. But he also left a generation of myths in the Guandu region. Many people regard him as a role model. Even the world champion not far away, Dandi, Emperor Dan also vaguely recognized it. Since embarking on the path of training Jiabao Kameng to fight, there has been a person he admires. Demu Xuecheng, the first champion of the Guandu region, and his powerful Spitfire dragon. At that time, when he was still young, a seed was planted in his heart. Combined with the reaction of Grandma Kikuko, it's almost certain that the boy who just appeared, it should be Dr. Daiki from his youth. Due to the lack of explanation from Grandma Juzi. As the only informant present, the Dandi also spoke up to explain. Suddenly, it also caused a considerable vibration. Dr. Daiki. But just before people could react, the huge golden light curtain in the sky began to vibrate. Simultaneously, text appears. The QA session has started, officially starting. As long as you choose the correct answer, you can get rich rewards. The answer quota is limited, and people are randomly selected to answer each time. There is no penalty for incorrect answers this time. Question. Who is the God-Beast related account? A. Demu Xuecheng, B. Dandi, C. Xiaozhi, D. Shendai. There are no signs. The QA session suddenly starts. As long as you select and answer the correct answer, you can receive rewards. A simple line of words. But it also greatly stimulates people's nerves. For a while, the world is also completely fried. Chapter 7. Xiaozhi's name. Everyone's choice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Oh my god, what the hell is this? QA session. The most important thing is to answer correctly, and there is actually a reward. Hiss, I really hope to be selected and guess right. I don't know what reward there will be. Select me, be sure to select me. Looking at the world god chart in the sky. The crowd below is restless at this moment. After all, everyone has seen the wonders of the world god list. In addition to receiving rewards for the objects being counted. Now, there's actually a QA session. As long as the answer is correct, everyone has the potential to receive rewards. With the emergence of this news, people are also completely insane at this moment. As long as you get it right, there will be rewards. How can this make people not crazy? But those 4 names, why do I seem to know the Dandi? Am I outdated? Yes, who is that big wooden snow into? It seems a bit familiar. You may not be very clear about this name, but when it comes to Dr. Daimu, you must be clear. Hiss, Dr. Oki. Is that the same Dr. Oki who has published numerous Pokémon research theories and innovated them time and time again? That's right. He's the pride of our Guandu region. Not only is he a PhD, but before studying Pokémon, he was also the first Pokémon champion in the Guandu region. Doesn't that mean it's very likely that it's Dr. Oki? Not necessarily. I know from the divine, he is also very strong. He is the leader of the battle pyramid, in charge of the symbol of bravery, and seems to have 3 divine beasts in his hands. Hiss, it's all so terrifying. Isn't it that the person named Xiaozhi is also quite complicated? But I really haven't heard of the name Xiaozhi. Is it some hidden big shot? Zhenxin town. Xiaozhi looked up at the world god list in the air. I saw my own name appear on it. I was also a bit surprised for a moment. With a strong sense of disbelief. How did your name appear on it? Huazi, Xiaozhi's mother. At this moment it was equally unbelievable, and even more so, he covered his mouth and exclaimed in surprise. Xiaozhi. Xiaozhi, it's really you. Speaking of the end, he couldn't help but jump up. Pulling up Xiaozhi's arm is also a heartfelt joy for his son. Xiaozhi pulled his hat and saw such a happy mother. A bitter smile also appeared on his face. In the end, he just waved his hand helplessly. Mom, this doesn't necessarily mean it's me. Perhaps there are other people in the world called Xiaozhi. As Xiaozhi's words fell, Huazi, who had already been overwhelmed by joy, regained her composure and looked at Xiaozhi in front of her. There was a hint of complexity in my eyes. And the surrounding residents who gathered. After a brief surprise, when I first saw Xiaozhi's name. They are all genuinely happy for him. I didn't know what to say to comfort Xiaozhi after hearing her say so. Yeah. There are many people in this world called Xiaozhi. Not necessarily the little wisdom they know. Huazi looked at Xiaozhi with a hint of concern on her face, and she hesitated to speak. Xiaozhi. Xiaozhi quietly watched the world god list. After a moment. But suddenly he smiled again. Looking at the flower in front of him, he solemnly said. I am the one who wants to become a Pokémon master. I like Pokémon and have a genuine love for it. No matter what the future holds, as long as I can move in this direction, it's right. Xiaozhi said at the end. Tightly clenched his fist. There is still an inexplicable meaning in my eyes. That's never giving up, never giving up. This is Xiaozhi's dream, to become a master of Pokémon. Become the world's #1 Pokémon master. No matter what setbacks he encounters, he cannot give up on this dream. This is Xiaozhi's persistence, never give up. Dr. Daiki looked at Xiaozhi not far away. And the sudden appearance of the God List QA session. There are also those 4 options. Look at Xiaozhi and his own name appearing on it. I couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Before he could speak out, Ron beside him became extremely excited and burst into laughter. Xuecheng, it's stable, this time it's stable. Not many people know that the boy is you, as long as you choose, you can get a reward. Ron's breathing became heavy, and Dr. Oki appeared in the video. Although he was very shocked. Who actually appears in the video is Dr. Oki. He actually met Sherabi before. This Dr. Daimu has never been revealed. But at this moment, more is joy. As long as it is selected. Isn't the reward for the QA session easily obtainable? Dr. Oki appeared somewhat calm about this. Just wanted to explain, but at this moment, the world god list in the air. The emerging light curtain blooms with radiance. The golden scene was so captivating that people couldn't open their eyes. At the next moment, a cluster of light came to Dr. Oki, a golden expanse that looked incredibly beautiful. Dr. Daiki watched this scene and for a moment, his face couldn't help but show a look of surprise. I felt the powerful energy fluctuations in it. Meanwhile, around the world. There are many people in front of whom a cluster of light appears. Elf Alliance. The sudden appearance of the QA session also plunged the atmosphere present into a dead silence. Finally, De Wu is the first to break the silence. Gently tapping on the desktop, watching the sudden QA session appear, and exhaling a mouthful of turbid air. Perhaps this is an opportunity. As long as one of us is selected for QA, there is a chance to receive rewards. And, based on the information we currently have, Demu Shuecheng is the most likely. The words have just fallen. The world god list blooms with radiance. In this vast conference room. But suddenly two golden light clusters appeared. Finally, he stayed in front of Yolongdu and Dandi. But there are only two. This light cluster came very suddenly. Even they haven't reacted yet. Basically, the strong ones around at the level of heavenly kings also have a hint of envy in their eyes at this moment. At their level of strength. It is difficult to improve one's strength. The emergence of the world god list has precisely given them hope. Looking at the two people who appeared in front of me not far away. Grandma Kikuko, Shiba and others felt the sudden light cluster. For a moment, my heart couldn't help but tremble. That magnificent light cluster, just a glance, makes people unable to move their eyes. It contains vast yet mysterious power. Chapter 8. Answer Section. Hua Lan Dao Guan Xiao Xia. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At this moment, the conference room was completely silent. People quietly watched as the Dandi and Yulong ferry passed by. The dazzling light cluster stood before them in awe. After particularly feeling its terrifying power. Even though there are all championship-level trainers around, their hearts are still trembling. De Wu saw the dazzling light cluster. Feeling the power that contains terror to the extreme. He, who was originally incredibly calm, now showed a deep shock on his face. Even if you are mentally prepared. But in front of this radiance with immense power, I still cannot control my expression. Even the champion Pokémon looks so inferior. I don't even have the qualification to lift shoes. The world's #1 trainer, Dandi. Looking at the dazzling light in front of me, I also feel a bit dry-mouthed at this moment. There was a deep shock in his eyes, as if he had been guided by some kind of guidance. Gently grasp the light cluster and make a selection. Demu Shuecheng. The same goes for the Yulong ferry nearby. Glancing at the Dandi beside him, he suddenly gripped the light ball in the end. Dandi. At this moment. Such scenes are constantly happening around the world. Sakaki looked at the sudden appearance of the light cluster in front of him. A drop of cold sweat slid over my face. Along with it comes endless excitement. Watching the extremely eerie light suddenly appear in front of him, a brilliant glow shone on his face. Guru Sakaki quickly calmed down after experiencing extreme excitement. You must remain calm. Carefully analyzing the situation in front of him, his eyes flickered. Then look at the 4 options on the screen. Silent for a long time. Shendai. Hua Lan Dao Guan. In a deep blue museum. Pokémon are playing and frolicking in the water. The girls were also sitting by the swimming pool, constantly playing with the splashes with their feet. Looking up, there was a world god chart that suddenly appeared in the sky not long ago. For a moment it was chattering and arguing non-stop. The girl with blue hair and red eyes, Chang Pu, looked at the 4 suddenly appearing options and tilted her head to ask. Hey, who do you think it could be? The girl with pink hair, Peony, propped her hands on the edge of the pool, pouting her mouth, feeling a bit bored. What, I don't know any of the ones above. Compared to them, I prefer the legendary mythical beast. It's really beautiful. If you could come and perform with us, it would definitely make Hualan Daoguan the most dazzling presence. Xiaozhi looked at her sisters. I couldn't help but cover my forehead for a moment, with black lines all over my head. My 3 older sisters, as the owner of the Hualan Taoist Hall, don't want to improve their skills, they just want to know how to perform. Xiaozhi was also very speechless about this. Finally, helplessly speaking. Please, we're currently discussing who it is, not whether it looks good or not. I heard Xiaozhi's voice. The older sisters all turned around, and the older sister Sakura smiled and shook her head. The wavy blonde hair trembled even more. Looking at Xiaozhi, she smiled and said, "Only the selected ones have the opportunity to answer. Even if we discuss the answer, it may not necessarily be us." The 2 sisters around her echoed in agreement. Yes, yes. Xiaozhi always worries so much. Looking at my 3 sisters who are already beyond cure. Xiaozhi's head was covered in black lines, and her heart was secretly determined to become stronger. Otherwise, this inherited Hualan Daoguan is really going to be defeated by them. In an instant. Above the swimming pool, a dazzling beam of light suddenly appeared, emitting a terrifying pressure. The Pokémon, who were originally playing and frolicking in the swimming pool, are now even more formidable. Hiding at the bottom of the swimming pool, trembling. The 4 of them were all startled by the sudden scene. Soon, Guan came to Xiaozhi's side. Quickly understood, this is choosing Xiaozhi. Xiaozhi's face was a bit shocked, looking at the light in front of her and feeling a bit at a loss for a moment. The 3 sisters, after seeing this scene, opened their mouths wide and looked unbelievable. Xiaozhi was actually selected. This is something that nobody expected. With such a low probability, you actually chose her. Xiaozhi suddenly became a bit anxious. Who should you ultimately choose? For a moment, the 3 sisters looked at each other in confusion. You look at me, I look at you. The entire interior of the Taoist temple fell into silence. Xiaozhi suddenly became more anxious. Sister Sakura saw Xiaozhi in such a hurry and looked up at the options above. Finally, she spoke up. I think it's better to choose Daimu Xuecheng. He is Dr. Daimu and also the former champion of the Kanto region. Let's choose him. As soon as the words fell, second sister Changpu immediately spoke. I think it's better to choose the Dandi. He is the world's #1 Pokémon trainer. No matter how you look at it, the most likely one is still him. San Jie Mutant shook her head, her delicate little face full of seriousness. I think it's better to be a deity. I accidentally saw a news article before that the leader of the battle pyramid still had a divine beast in his hand, and in my opinion, the most likely one was still him. Looking at my 3 sisters. Everyone says a different answer. Xiaozhi is almost crying. Watching them constantly arguing. Xiaozhi immediately understood that she had 3 unreliable sisters. You still have to make your own choices. Silence for a moment, then bite your lips and choose the last option they didn't choose, Xiaozhi. After Xiaozhi's choice, the light cluster also dissipated in an instant. Meanwhile, in the Carlos region. Chaoxiang town. A head of linen-colored short hair, wearing a pure white dress, with beautiful ripples in her eyes. A gentle breeze blows, causing the hem of the skirt to sway. This scene is as beautiful as a painting. Like a beauty in a painting, but just staring blankly at the sky. Looking at the light curtain in the sky and the names inside. Xiaozhi. P.S. Kneeling for flower evaluation tickets and monthly tickets. The first day data will determine the life or death of a book. Kneeling for data. Chapter 9. Everyone's choice, reward distribution. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Serena looked up at the sky in silence. Her eyes were filled with tenderness, but the familiar name made her tremble. Xiaozhi. After seeing this name again, my heart couldn't help but slow down a beat. She pursed her lips and looked at Xiaozhi's name appearing on the world god list, but suddenly smiled. Gently open your mouth. If it's Xiaozhi, it's really very likely. A faint ripple rose in my eyes. Serena looked up at the sky, but a hint of contemplation and memories flashed in her eyes. The little things I once did with Xiaozhi. A curve curved at the corner of the mouth. Xiaozhi, who had originally planned to search for Xiaozhi, now becomes even more determined in her heart. No hesitation. Step forward and hold on to the light ball in front of you tightly. Xiaozhi. Zhenxin town. Xiaozhi watched as his name appeared on it. For a moment, I felt somewhat lost. However, for a moment, they clenched their fists tightly. Anyway, I am someone who wants to become the world's #1 Pokémon master. How could it stop because of this? Pikachu beside him watched quietly, seemingly sensing the change in Xiaozhi. At this moment, the surrounding crowd erupted into bursts of exclamation. Oh my god, what is that? Hiss, is this someone going to be selected? I don't know who was so lucky to be selected by the World God Edition. In the next moment, the light group is flying towards the direction of Dr. Omi. For a moment, the crowd was completely boiling. Xiaozhi, upon seeing this behind the scenes, was also genuinely happy for Dr. Oki. Although I didn't choose myself, I still clenched my fists tightly, praying in my heart. Dr. Daiki, you must choose it. Under the gaze of the crowd, the group of light quickly approached Dr. Oki. Ron's eyes showed a hint of disbelief. Finally, there was even more excitement in my eyes. Whether you choose yourself or Daiki, you can always choose the right answer. This is just a reward. Demu looked at the light ball in front of him, his eyes becoming somewhat complicated for a moment. Look towards the crowd not far away. Take a glance at Xiaozhi and quickly withdraw your attention. Finally, give your own choice. Xiaozhi. At this moment, Ron's body even began to tremble uncontrollably due to excitement. Feeling the terrifying pressure brought by the light group, not only shocked by the divine list. It was even more shocking that Demu had once encountered Xuerabi. But upon hearing Dr. Oki's choice, he suddenly froze with disbelief in his eyes. Because Ron vaguely saw Big Wood giving the answer. The choice is Xiaozhi. Not far away, Xiaozhi is in the center of the crowd. I couldn't help but feel a little curious inside. Dr. Daiki, why did you come over to look? Maybe. I want to see everyone around me. Xiaozhi thinks the same way. I am also curious inside. After all, listening to discussions from the surrounding crowd, it seems like Dr. Daimu is just Daimu Xuecheng. And among those names, the name of Emperor Dan also appeared. Xiaozhi loves Pokémon and also loves Pokémon battles. Nature also knows about the Dondi. The world's #1 Pokémon trainer. Having a unique Spitfire dragon. Not only is it powerful, but it also exudes a majestic aura. But at the same time, an endless sense of war rose in my heart, and I wanted to become the world's #1 Pokémon master. I will definitely surpass them too. Around the world, a small number of people appear in front of light clusters representing their choices. It also caused a considerable vibration. As the selection is completed, there is a golden light curtain in the sky. At this moment, it starts flashing and soon the screen appears. After that name, soon there were portraits appearing one after another. A. Demu Xuecheng B. Dondi C. Xiaozhi D. Shendai Dr. Daiki wearing a white research suit. The world champion Dondi dressed in a royal robe. Super newcomer Xiaozhi holding a red hat. Full-body green battle pyramid leader Shindai. Photo after photo appeared. People are completely insane. Similarly, at the Elf Alliance meeting. At this moment, it's not calm either. Looking at a few familiar photos appearing. All the champion kings present now have a hint of envy in their eyes. As the champion of various regions, it may attract the attention of many local people. But if it goes out of that area, it's not that famous. But at this moment, Dondi, Dr. Daimu, and others are here. Appearing on the world god list, similarly also appearing in the eyes of everyone in the world. Perhaps after the world god list, the names of these people will become household names. Grandma Kikuko quietly watched the scene in the video. Looking at the photos that appeared, Dr. Daiki was wearing a white research suit. There was a faint smile on the corner of my mouth. With tears in his eyes, he murmured to himself. It's really him, Daimu. Dondi looked at the photo of himself displaying his domineering aura and couldn't seem to laugh or cry for a moment. Yulong-du, who was standing beside him, walked forward and said with a smile. Dondi, I chose you. A hint of astonishment flashed in the eyes of Emperor Dan, and in the end, he smiled bitterly and shook his head. No, you overestimated me. Yulong-du just laughed heartily. Even if you haven't encountered it before, there's a chance for the future. I think the most likely one is Dr. Oki. But speaking of it, that young man named Xiaozhi is very good. Perhaps one day in the future, we can also meet him. There was a faint smile on the corner of Dan Emperor's mouth. Looking at the boy wearing a red hat. With a smile on his lips, the Dondi could feel it on him. There is a love for Pokémon that is revealed from the bones. Similarly, I am also looking forward to the day when I meet Xiaozhi. He has a premonition. They will definitely meet. After everyone heard the words of Emperor Dan again. For a moment, I was somewhat shocked. Looking at the only teenager among the 4 options, it feels a bit strange no matter how you look at it. At the same time, all the champion-level trainers present here have a certain impression of the boy named Xiaozhi. But at the same time, I quickly realized that Dr. Omi must have had an intersection with Xuerabi. Even he can know the correct answer. As this idea arises. In the conference room, all the king-level trainers present looked at each other. Finally, my gaze fell on Grandma Juzi. Not for a while. Grandma Juzi's emotions calmed down, and she also understood. The current situation, the emergence of the world god list, may be a good thing, but at the same time, it could also trigger a riot. The Elf Alliance must be prepared in advance. Moreover, there may also be a QA session in the future, and Xuecheng may know something. At this moment, Zhenxin town, people's emotions have completely exploded. Look at 2 familiar faces appearing above. Dr. Daiki, Xiaozhi. The people of Zhenxin town are all numb. Surprisingly, it's really Xiaozhi. Even Xiaozhi's mother, Huazi, was full of confusion at the moment, but soon a hint of joy appeared. It's really Xiaozhi. Absolutely right, it's just Xiaozhi. The people around were full of disbelief. Opening his mouth wide, he looked at Xiaozhi not far away and then at the photo in the sky. The little wisdom in the photo has a touch of maturity, and her skin has turned into a healthy wheat color. There is also a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. It looks so sunny. But still the familiar little wisdom. Not only the people around him, but even Xiaozhi, who was involved, was a bit confused and looked surprised. I thought it was just someone with the same name as myself, but I didn't expect that one of the options that appeared was really me. And, still next to the world champion. It's not even time for Xiaozhi to speak up. At this moment, the golden light curtain in the sky is still flickering. A line of subtitles slowly emerged. The answer is C. Xiaozhi from Zhenxin town. Congratulations to Daimu Xuecheng, Xiaoxia, Serena for answering correctly. Rewards are currently being distributed. P.S. New book release, asking for flowers, evaluation tickets, monthly tickets, so that the author knows that someone is reading. Thank you. Chapter 10. Rewards issued, everyone's surprise. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Look at the text that appears above. Xiaozhi was a bit incredulous and rubbed his eyes. I looked at the options again. It is indeed oneself, and it is indeed C. At this moment, he was even more bewildered, his face full of disbelief. God-beast related households, actually it's me. Xiaozhi is a bit dazed all over. Mom Huazi was stunned for a moment, then looked at the answer above and went from shock to ecstasy. It's really my own son. Xiaozhi will actually know divine beasts in the future. For a moment, I was also sincerely proud of him. After hearing this news, the people of Zhenxin town began to be restless for a while. The crowd is completely boiling. Xiaozhi. Surprisingly, the divine beast-related household is the little wisdom of Zhenxin town. Wago, it's actually Xiaozhi, he's someone I've watched grow up with. I didn't expect it to be Xiaozhi, a child who loves Pokémon very much. I didn't expect to meet divine beasts in the future. He is the pride of our Zhenxin town. For a while, people surrounded the little wisdom in groups. His face was full of smiles. This time, not only are the options above Dr. Daimu, but also the god-beast related users are Xiaozhi. Zhenxin town has also gained a lot of attention this time. Not far away, Ron saw the option for Big Wood. When I heard him spit out the option of 2 words, I was immediately numb. Xiaozhi, is it the boy who got Pikachu? For a moment, Ron was completely disorganized in the wind, full of confusion. I don't understand. Why did Daimu make such a move? The answer above is obvious. What appears is Dr. Daiki, who intersects with Xuerabi. How could it be that boy? No matter how you look at it, it's impossible. The next moment, something that made him even more confused appeared. The answer was announced, and surprisingly, it was the boy who appeared. Ron is completely dumbfounded. Standing in the same place in a daze, my heart is filled with thousands of grass and mud horses galloping. Is it really that boy? Turning his head with difficulty, he looked at Xiaozhi, who was surrounded by a crowd not far away, and then looked up at the options above. The appearance is almost the same as in the photo. Swallowed his saliva, still feeling a bit incredulous about what was happening in front of him. But in the next moment, the light cluster in Dr. Oki's hand gradually became bright, emitting a dazzling light. When the light dissipated, it turned into a prop. Brave Cloak. After carrying this item, the entire lineup of elves gains 99% counter immunity without any restrictions. Soon, the name and function of the prop appear. Dr. Daiki looked at the prop in his hand and couldn't help but feel a hint of shock on his face. 99% suppression of immunity. After a moment of silence, Dr. Oki's breathing became heavy. Although no longer a trainer, becoming a Pokémon researcher. But the training of elves has never slackened. The most important thing is that it is precisely because of the identity of Pokémon's research that they deeply understand how powerful this prop is. It's just a pervert. The mutual restraint between Pokémon is itself a balance. And the existence of this prop is simply breaking this balance. Disrupting the rules of the world. Ron beside him was also aware and looked around the prop for a long time. I wanted to touch but didn't dare to touch, and my voice became somewhat trembling. How could it be possible? Suppress immunity by 99%. Isn't that to say? If this thing were popularized, there would be no existence of attributes. Hualan Dao Guan. With the announcement of the answer, Xiaozhi's appearance suddenly appeared on it. 3 sisters are so stupid. Did they all guess wrong? Xiaozhi is right. The correct answer is actually that boy. That seemingly impossible option. In the next moment, the mysterious light cluster bloomed with dazzling light. As the light gradually fades away, Xiaozhi looked at the sky-blue gemstone in her hand and quickly understood its purpose. Son of the Ocean. After carrying this item, the favorability of the water attribute Pokémon increases by 50%, and the team's water attribute Pokémon cultivation speed increases by 50%. Look at the gem in your hand. Xiaozhi just stared blankly. The function of this prop is very simple and easy to understand. However, is this a bit too extreme? As long as it is a water-based Pokémon, it can increase your liking for yourself by 50%. Moreover, the Pokémon in one's own hands can increase cultivation speed by 50%. That means with the blessing of this prop, the bond and strength between oneself and Pokémon will progress at an extremely abnormal speed. The three sisters around also gathered around. After seeing the introduction of this prop, I couldn't help but exclaim in surprise for a moment. Oh my goodness, increase your favorability by 50%. You can also increase your cultivation speed by 50%. Hiss, it seems that there isn't such a prop in this world, right? This reward is really amazing. Although the three sisters are not in the dream of training treasure. But I also understand the value of this prop. At this moment, everyone is sincerely happy for Xiaozhi. Xiaozhi looked up at the boy named Xiaozhi in the sky. There is a hint of gratitude in my eyes, but more curiosity. Are you accompanying divine beasts? What an amazing boy. Chaoxiang Town. Serena looked at the prop in her hand. Charm necklace. After wearing this prop, the user will add unique charm, and every move reveals elegance. Pokémon in the team share an elegant temperament. A beautiful necklace lay quietly in her hand. Serena pursed her lips, her eyes curved, and she smiled happily. She's not happy because she got the props, it's because the person on top is Xiaozhi. It's Xiaozhi. Serena then looked at the necklace in her hand, and suddenly blushes appeared on her face. Is this something that Xiaozhi gave me? There was a hint of shyness on her face, and in the end, she also put on this necklace. Since Xiaozhi wants to be the strongest Pokémon trainer, then, you must be the best Pokémon performer. Xiaozhi, I must catch up with your footsteps. At this moment, as the answers are announced and rewards are issued, the elf world is completely boiling.